Chapter 6: Divine Madness. There is the possibility that a drug opening the door to the unconscious could also release a latent potential psychosis. Carl Jung. The next few weeks after the LSD experience were some of the most harrowing of my life. I don't remember exactly what happened, but this is the synopsis. For a few days, I was disoriented, but my ego structure had not broken down yet. Everything felt strange, like a dream, but the psychotic unconscious only took over after a few days. It started with the voices. I was taken over by them. I started talking to otherworldly beings in my head, driving around Atlanta completely out of my mind. A few times, these beings told me to swerve in traffic, which led to a couple of dangerous incidents and my car tire popping. I was stranded on the side of the road in the middle of the night, where I proceeded to wander the fields, thinking that I was God. I began punishing all of the evil people in the world with my godly powers. I actually thought that they were suffering just from the divine power of my intentions. I punished all of the wicked, and especially those that caused me harm in the past. Carl Jung writes, in introjection, he gets involved in a ridiculous self-deification, or else a moral self-laceration. The mistake he makes in both cases comes from attributing to a person the contents of the collective unconscious. In this way, he makes himself or his partner either God or devil. Carl Jung. Somehow, my parents picked me up, but the voices didn't stop. Even as I write these words today, I feel incredible guilt in my heart. I put my parents through so much. They took out the handles to the doors because I locked myself in my room, talking to imaginary people. I got into a couple of fights with my dad. Eventually, they could not put up with me any longer and sent me to a troubled men's home in Maine. So here we will pause the story and examine the nature of my psychotic break. First, prior to any psychedelic drug use, I had an experience of blissful oneness and an archetypal vision of the self. Second, in line with the Jungian idea that the self is divinity manifested in the mind, once this force in the collective unconscious was released during the psychedelic experience, which causes the temporary dissolution of the boundary between ego and unconscious, my mind fell into religious delusional fantasies as my egos brought the self down and identified the oneness of truth with the separateness of my body-mind. The unitive Godhead did not become Unshu, which is truth. Instead, little Unshu became God, which is a lie and psychotic fantasy. My name is Unshu, by the way. Jung writes, or no, this is Mary Louise von Franz. Mary Louise von Franz writes, the dark side of the self is the most dangerous thing of all, precisely because the self is the greatest power in the psyche. It can cause people to spin into megalomania or fall into other delusionary fantasies that catch them up. The dark side of the self, the archetype of wholeness, and the union of opposites was fractured and brought down into unholy separation and ego inflation due to the fact that the collective unconscious, an ocean of manifold energy and ancestral power, swallowed my little teacup ego, drowning the little me within its hypnotic sway. Bringing the Indian's perspective into this, the dark side of the self only has power so long as the light of God is not completely integrated into the psyche. The dark side only has power so long as the ego has not been transcended, so long as the separate self has not been consumed by one's union with the true self, the blissful, loving, boundless, unitive force of existence. And thus I lost my mind. I had only temporarily realized the self. My ego soon reasserted itself alongside a newly punctured hole and permeable boundary between my conscious and unconscious self. Carl Jung writes, schizophrenia lowers the threshold of consciousness, thereby allowing normally inhibited contents of the collective unconscious to enter consciousness in the form of autonomous invasions. And yet, I'm hypothesizing here, because I had previously realized the blissful self archetype prior to my acid-induced psychotic break, a healing power, a deeper truth within my psyche beyond the ego was already working to straighten me out. All right, I guess that's good. I can keep going, but I could do another 3-minute video a little later. All right, see you guys later.